Go over to this now. It's a story that has now dominated the headlines, at least where sport is concerned, for like the last day or so. Caster Semenya's lawyers calling for the World Athletics Testosterone Regulation to be suspended. Now this, after the 2017 study was corrected by its publishers. Semenya was barred from competing at the Tokyo Olympics, of course, in her preferred distance of 800 meters and 1500 meters. She did, of course, as well fail to qualify in the 5,000 meters that she did try to compete in. Well, we are joined by the athlete's lawyer, Gregory Nott, for more on the story. Gregory, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So, it's saying that it's an overstatement, the correction, of course, of...
May I just say, I was touched by the previous segment, and if I may pass my condolences to the family and relatives of the deceased. It's a shocking story and well covered.
Well, thank you very much. We, of course, I would imagine they will appreciate that, Gregory. So let's talk about the journal that is now being corrected, the journal that essentially barred our superstar from competing at the Tokyo Olympics and potentially going for another 800-meter gold medal. It has been corrected by the publishers themselves. It said that it is an overstatement. Some of the studies that were the study itself that was taken there, some of the findings that were there were an overstatement. But I would think that it, to some extent, is still giving World Athletics some leeway to continue to not allow Caster to compete in the 800 meters. Where are you guys now essentially aiming your fight? How are you going to approach this?
Well, at the moment, Marina, we are before the European Court for Human Rights. So I'm loath to comment upon our strategic initiatives that we have at the moment. I know quite well that we filed our papers, that there are certain interests, some high-power interveners who have come into the fight themselves, and that we anticipate answers and replies to be passed over the next couple of months. And probably in 2022, the hearing will take place. So we as a team, and when I say we as a team, I represent my South African lawyers from Alton Rose Fulbright, and we have Canadian lawyers as well as Queen's Counsel in London. And what we've decided, Marina, is that we are going to take it step by step and slowly to ensure that we have this absolutely buttoned down. It goes beyond what you've said, because the World Athletics Health Science Director actually said it was misleading, that this statement that was created in 2017 was misleading. Now, if you think about it, the Court of Arbitration for Sport relied upon this particular report to come to its decision 2-1 against Caster, cutting her off not only from Tokyo Olympics, but also from the World Series that was run earlier this year and so on. So, I mean, the damage to Caster and her dignity is enormous. And what's also frightening, quite frankly, Marina, is that this report now was only released post-Tokyo, which raises a number of questions as well as to, I'm fairly cynical and outspoken, and I wonder why, in fact, was it only released now? The World Athletics Health and Science Director has also emphasized the need for an independent, controlled trial to establish scientific evidence. Now, that's something we called for. That's something we called for ages ago. And why that wasn't done, I don't know. But it really is something which needs to be examined, and it needs to be fully pressurized.
Gregor, you raise an important point there, where you say that this report is now suddenly coming after the Tokyo Olympics that Caster was supposed to be at. There's been a lot of widespread criticism from South Africans that this is actually racial. This is discriminatory. This is an attack on Caster because she is so dominant and was said to be more dominant in competitions to come. So would it then not be far-fetched anymore to assume or believe that this was a particular attack on Caster Semenya, on even Margaret Wambue and Francine Niyonsaba, because they too are affected by this?
I'm firmly of that belief, Marina. I'm not shy in saying it, quite frankly. I believe in the North-South divide, the rich, the poor, the black, the white. I firmly believe that we get the rough edge of the sword. And I'm firmly of the belief of that. I've represented Caster for now nearly 12 years of my life, and I've seen the indignity suffered by her and her strength and fortitude over these years. But she gets the rough end. So, Marina, I'm with you.
And now I understand that you're saying that you can't really, shed more light on your guys' approach and what it is you're going to do, but can you at least tell us if this walking back on the findings is cause for hope? Can South Africans think that, Gregory Nott and the team can actually overturn World Athletics regulations and get Caster back on track in the 800 meters?
Law has many twists and turns, as you know, Marina. So we don't want to be overconfident, and we can always anticipate something from World Athletics, quite frankly, and not always the best show. So we will work very hard at making it to our advantage. We will work very hard to show the duplicity behind it, and what has happened. And we will certainly, you can assure South Africans that we won't leave any stone unturned. And may I say, Marina, that we've always been heartened by South Africa. Just during December, the Parliament came out in full support of Caster. We have the Chapter 9 institutions with Tamara Matabele and Mohammed Shafi completely behind us, David McCoy-Mason and others of great standing, who have come together collectively to assist our legal team in promoting the best advantage for Caster. So be rest assured that we will leave no stone unturned. So
the European Court of Human Rights hearing is happening next year. What happens now, between now and then? This outcome has just happened. We now have heard of this report being corrected. But what happens between now and the hearing that you guys are waiting for?
Well, we'll also look at the Court of Arbitration for Sport and see whether we can do something there. I don't want to say too much about that, but we've got the European Court for Human Rights, which we've now before. Now with this report coming out, there's a possibility maybe of the Court of Arbitration for Sport being revisited in a different light, given this report. There are a number of options on the table, and ones which we will look at, and ones which we are going to consider. Now, but you asked me the question, but between now and the hearing, what will happen? Well, we've filed the application, and we will anticipate answers coming from World Athletics and others to our vermins, and to which we will respond. So it takes some months in terms of doing all of this, and we will be shortly involved in that process.
What has been? I want to start here, actually, Gregory, and say that obviously one of the people who are responsible for this report, on which World Athletics and CAS has relied on, was not available for comment, as I would imagine you can expect. But what then have we heard from World Athletics? What have we heard from the people who are responsible for Caster Semenya not competing in the competitions she most likely would have dominated? Have we heard anything, or are they still mum on these findings?
We've heard that this wasn't new, that this was not a new report. Well, we want to have a look at that. We want to have a look at what was said beforehand. So our examination is going to be full-fold, and a full interrogation behind when, how, and who said what. Because quite frankly, Maria, it's unacceptable. And as I said to you earlier, the cynicism behind the release of this particular report, where the scientist actually comes out and said it was misleading post-Tokyo Olympics. Quite frankly, Caster would have won her third Olympic gold.
Yeah.
And she would have brought not only the Olympic gold back, but she would have brought unity for our country. She would have brought back pride and so on. She's our icon. And what she would have been for the country would have been enormous.
What's her reaction to this?
She is not happy. And when I say not happy, I don't mean, Caster's far from a self-pity type of person. She's a fully fledged professional. She's strong. She's always ready to take up the fight, always ready to take up the cudgel, but she's not happy about the way this is progressed or processed. Let me tell you, she's also very cynical about processes which are run by other organizations outside of our own continent and protective of our African people.
And you say that she's not happy, but it's been a long 4 years since, of course, this report came out, and 3 years since the IAAF, at the time at least, when they were still called the IAAF, decided they're going to clamp down on Caster and the other athletes who are like Caster Semenya. But emotionally, how much of a toll has it taken on her?
I think it's stressful, quite frankly. I mean, this is her livelihood. And anyone attacking his livelihood in particular times as we are going through it's stressful. She doesn't try to show it, but it's certainly one which it affects her. But she continues in her training, in her professionalism, in her training of her foundation and inspires young runners. So overall, it's quite an amazing picture that she paints. But at the same time, it's got to get to her, and it fires her up even more so. So it doesn't defeat her; it actually rises her. It raises her and makes her rise to the occasion.
Gregory, Sebastian Coe and
that's my experience.
Yeah. Gregory, Sebastian Coe and his organization have proven that they will dig deep in their heels where these regulations are concerned. Are you expecting fight back? I mean, the findings have been corrected. They relied on the findings. CAS relied on these findings. So if this is what you relied on and it's now being corrected, surely you should change. But World Athletics has shown that it will take this fight as far as they possibly can.
Yes, I agree with you. They will do that. And we've got to anticipate that, and we've got to be ready for it. And that's why I say our team, both in London, and why I say London is because we've got to use Queen's Counsel for the Strasbourg experience in the European Court for Human Rights. We've all got to be, as a team, ready for action and quite prepared. And that's why I said to you earlier that we're not going to rush anything at all. We are going to be quite prepared before we attack.
Gregory, we will leave it there. Thank you so much for your time here on Upfront on eNCA. That is Gregory Nott, who is Mohadi Caster Semenya's lawyer. Of course, great news. I would at least say it's great news, but we're hearing from Gregory that they're going to be very careful, very calculated in how they approach this. Of course, the European Court of Human Rights is where the next step is going to be, where the hearing is going to happen. But a lot is going to be happening, I would imagine, between now and then, especially now that this outcome has been made with the British, British Journal of Sports Medicine being corrected where this particular testosterone regulation is concerned.